And guess what? We're back. And this time, it's a Yinz Dahn to listen to us talk about cult movies. And I'm back here with my pals, Seth of Geekville Radio and Mark of the Prop Stop and Collector's Call. And we have a special subject today. It's a movie that I would say is probably one of a kind, a special cult movie. And it's one that has flown maybe literally under the radar of a lot of people. And I think we've got a few interesting tidbits to share about it. And would one of you gentlemen care to divulge the name of this film?
Well, I think since Mark put us up to this, let's have Mark do it.
Well, this has been something I've talked to Seth on about for, I think, 10 years. So since I'm getting a little older in the tooth now, I thought it was time that we talked about what I have come to comfortably think is my favourite movie. And it's a strange one because it's one that a lot of people have never seen. The DVD is very hard to get hold of. Used to be, now it's come down in price. You can get the Australian version on eBay right now for about $13. But for a time, it was a $100 or $200 DVD because it was just unavailable. They've never done a remaster of it, so there's not a high def version out there, to my pain. And I'm going to talk about the 1981 Disney movie Condorman.
Condorman, yes.
Yeah. I remember watching the beta video of that in '82 at some point, and now when you mention that there hasn't been a release, boy, if I would have been able to acquire that tape back then, holy cow, because I grew up on beta, and I know we're all old men, so we know what that means, but for any of you younger folks listening, there used to be two home video tape formats. There was the VHS, which everybody knows about, and there was beta, which was actually the superior format, but VHS was a lot cheaper, so that's why it caught on. So, but I still have beta VCR players to this day. But I think with Condorman, what was that?
Can I borrow one?
No,
seriously,
sure.
I have, I have a beta tape upstairs that I got at a comic book store in Pittsburgh, and it has 3 episodes of Star Trek on it. I assume they were recorded in the mid '80s. I want to harvest the commercials from it.
Oh,
and,
yes.
And I do. Yeah, I do have a friend who has a Betamax player, and I just need to connect with him. But yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about these old formats is time traveling and getting, the commercials and just the time capsule that is an old recording.
I can get lost just watching old commercials because now I got several beta tapes as well, where you just have the stuff you just record, and if you didn't freeze out the commercials, sometimes going back on that stuff, and you hear this stuff you haven't heard in 35 years, and you're humming the jingle like you just heard it yesterday.
Well, it was 1981. I was driving in a coach to France. So I was 10 years old, and I remember driving past this big movie theater in London. I saw this poster, and it simply said Condorman. It had a picture of a guy in a bird suit flying on it. And I was like, what the heck is that? So after getting back from France, I think I sought out my nearest multiplex, or maybe it was the small Leiston Film Theatre in, the 1918 cinema that was in our local town of 5,000 people. And I just fell in love with this thing. It's the worst movie in some ways ever, It's the best movie. It's the thing that you're embarrassed to admit people you like, and you kind of want them to watch it, and you make them watch it, and you sit there biting your lip going, is this guy thinking I'm nuts for liking this thing? Also, I'm not sure if someone who's like 40 years old or 20 years old today can go and watch this movie and put themselves in the mindset that I do. Obviously, you guys loved it, because I'm pretty sure you saw it when you were kids, did you?
It was on, one of those UHF channels. on the weekends.
Yeah,
So
I think I'd also seen it once because one of my friends had the premium cable because I grew up without cable, and so it would have been one of those premium movie channels. I remember seeing it again in the early '80s because that's when I distinctly remember the scene where Woody tries to act all tough with the drink and he gets and literally breathes fire because there's so much booze in it.
a double? No, a double.
That's a scene I distinctly remember, as well as all the Porsche 911s, which I'm assuming were toys that they destroyed in that to keep the budget down. But they smash up like 5 911 Carreras or something like that.
There was
Not
some
issues with Barbara
there's
Carrera,
real
who's in the
ones,
movie, but
and there's also some Volkswagen Beetle kind of things, with the top on top Beetle base, I believe. But so you never saw it in the film theater, then? You never saw it in the
I didn't see it in
multiplayer?
the theater. No.
I would have been too young. No, it was long forgotten by the time I would have been able to step foot in the theater, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm lucky then, because it washed over me, seeing that movie on the big screen, which is, I'm sure many people couldn't see that. Maybe like the year after, you'd have been able to see that in reruns. But yeah, that movie probably hasn't been on the big screen since '84, and it's such a shame because it has a feel. It's big. It's a big, expensive, weird thing. I keep going back to weird because, again, I'm not sure if someone watching this for the first time today is going to get this. I want them to really badly because I feel like this is the perfect movie for a remake. And yet I'm also completely scared, and I know the truth that if they remade this, it would be a total disaster.
It would be a slippery slope, thin ice sort of thing. Yeah. It might not go so well.
And I don't care who made it. I don't want nothing to do with the remake. I don't want to be personally responsible for it. I never wrote a fanfic on it. I never really thought about what the next level would be. I'm so dead scared that anything that I love about the film could be totally destroyed by trying to redo it. And in fact, there was a remake. Sorry, not a remake. Yeah, two things. There was a sequel, but when the first one tanked, that was taken care of pretty quickly, so they didn't make a sequel. Because the end, of course, ends with them saying, I'm going to take you to, and
They were hoping for a sequel. Yeah, it just didn't quite work out that way. It didn't. It kind of took a bath on that one.
The
It
Disney
lost
executive couldn't
$9.5 million according to Wikipedia.
the Disney executive couldn't believe that it wasn't a hit. They were so confused. They thought it was going to be huge. But it was in and out of the theaters pretty quickly. I think the problem in England is Michael Crawford was, of course, famous for a TV show called Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, played Frank Spencer, a very comedic and foolish man role. And now we were asked to believe that he was this comic book artist turned superhero, that he would only put things on the screen. He would only put things in his comic book if they worked in real life, which I always thought was the true genius story idea of this movie. And of course, people couldn't figure a comedy actor being a superhero. And I think that was one of the main reasons the movie failed.
What's funny about Michael Crawford's career, and I would say funny, I don't really mean like in a ha-ha sense or that it's anything bad, but he gathered quite the reputation a few years later because he was kind of the guy for the Andrew Lloyd Webber adaptation of Phantom of the Opera, which of course is not comedy, but that's really what what he became known for. It's where I was linking the name to. I also used to get him confused with Wayne Crawford, who was an American actor who also did a lot of comedy. I think it was like Jake Speed and a couple other things. But yeah, Michael Crawford, I think, at least to my knowledge, that's where he gained a lot of his notoriety was his stage work.
His performance in the movie, obviously, he's putting on an American accent, and that's a lot of people. The act is quite broad in the comedy. It's silly, it's childish, it's fun. and yet somehow he comes across as an amazing leading man. And I have to say, the whole cast of this movie, to go to the cast, I had a huge crush at 10 years old on Barbara Carrera, who of course played who to this day I still think that is probably one of the most beautiful women that I've ever seen. Even though she's completely fictional and an actress. But when you're 10 years old, your brain cells start going and firing off, and it's a terrible thing. But she's amazing. And then, of course, Oliver Reed, Krokoff, the villain.
Yes. Oh, yes.
One of the great villains in all history. And of course, he's got a sidekick in the same way that, Drax had Jaws, and Morovich, who is played by Jean-Pierre Cafton. He had the silver eye, and even though he hardly says anything, that moment has always stuck with me when all of the Broknoviach cars blow up, and he lets down the window of the Porsche, and the Condor car goes away on the hovercraft mode, and he just slams his hand down and then puts the window up. And I just, without saying anything, he's just one of those villains that just absolutely is incredible. And I have for some before you guys talk about these people. James Hampton was Harry, and he's the only cast member that I got to meet at C2E2 about 20.
Yeah, I would imagine he'd be good in conventions.
And at the time I used to wear, which I haven't worn a hat for a long time. I think it was maybe for like a 6-month period. And I walked up to him kind of like Harry is got the long trench coat on and a hat. I walked up to James Hampton and I said, I was very rude. I said, I don't want an autograph, Mr. Hampton. I just wanted to tell you that you were one of the things I remember most about my youth, and you were in a little film called Condorman. His face lit up because he'd obviously been asked a million times about all the other things he'd ever done. But I got to share a little 2-minute conversation with him, and then as I was walking away, he said, "Oh no, Mark, we must take a picture." So I had a picture of me with Harry, James Hampton, a couple of years before he died. And interestingly enough, he died the day, 40 years to the day that Condorman was released back in 1981. I don't remember the exact date, but so I did get to meet him 2 years before his death, and I'll tell you, I was so psyched about that. I've always wanted to meet Barbara Carrera. I've always wanted to meet Michael Crawford. But when you can tell someone that this little thing that they did meant so much to you, it was really special. So those are my thoughts about the Condorman actors.
It's
That's very cool.
if I ever meet Dana Carvey, I'd want to ask him about Blue Thunder, because I'm pretty sure nobody asks him about the Blue Thunder TV show. But yeah, you were talking about the actors. Barbara Kerr, of course, she was also a Bond girl. I think she did a lot of soap opera work as well. Dana Elcar, who's the CIA boss, basically. He's probably best known for Black Sheep Squadron, and he was MacGyver's boss in MacGyver. Henry Mancini did the music, which, I mean, next to John Williams, I'd say Henry Mancini is probably in that top 5 music composers.
Oh yeah.
And you asked for when it was released. I believe it was the second weekend in August. Might have been the first weekend in August in the States. It was early July in the UK. But
yeah, that's why, because that's when we went to France. You already jumped ahead there to the music, and I don't know if you know how hard it was to get the music. It came out on CD by Intrada, and then immediately started going for like $100 because it was so hard to get hold of a copy. It's my favorite soundtrack of all time.
I can see why. Yeah,
It's finest work for me. It is like another character in the movie. I encourage anybody to go out there and look on YouTube and listen to the Attack of the Block Noviac or the opening titles. It is stunning. I know a lot of this is personal. You know, there's always going to be like, you don't know why you like it. I couldn't even tell you why I like it. It's just this is the movie that came out when I was 10. It hit all the right buttons. I wasn't even a superhero fan. I'd been to see Superman 2 or 3 years before, but this thing is hung around my neck, and I just needed to get it out. You know, I needed to talk about it because there's very few movies that I love this much. Like, because you know when you go to a desert island, they say you can only take one movie with you. It'd be Condorman.
Wow, that is a big endorsement. That's very cool.
Yeah.
No one else is gonna believe it, because they're all gonna want to watch Seven, and they're gonna want they're gonna want the Terminator 2 and all that, and I'm gonna say no, Condorman. But the biggest endorsement I can have is it's worth your $13.99 to go on to eBay, buy this thing, sit in a nice dark room with your dog on your lap, and play this thing at full volume, and just let 1981 just soak over you. Try to not look at the wires, because obviously when poor old Michael Crawford or the stunt man is up above the Eiffel Tower, it's either blue green screen or it's on wires. But
that's part of the charm.
No, and that's the problem, because I'm in my 10-year-old self refuses to see the wires, because back then you couldn't see the wires. Now, because of high quality of watching slightly better DVD copies, not high def yet. But now when you see the wires, it's charming, but it's also annoying.
Yeah. You got me thinking now, Mark. Does that present a challenge if a company like Vinegar Syndrome was to do a big 4K Steelbox remaster re-release of Condorman? Would they have a totally cleaned up version where you can see things you really weren't meant to see, all the wires and everything, or would they have one that like keep it?
Don't change. Don't change.
Would they clean it up? Would they keep it fuzzy? What would you do? You could do all three, I guess, but
Don't change.
that's something of a challenge.
I am not a big fan of going in. I like the new Doctor Who's that are coming out where they changed, things left, right. I know there is the ability to play both versions, but it's
Same with Star Trek, yeah.
It's daft. It's daft. Just this is the movie as it was shot, as it was made. That's the way it's shown. And I actually, when it comes to things that do work, like the car battle in the Nova Sterling, which is the Condor car, that was a special car because it had a cockpit that would go. You never actually see it in the movie, but the cockpit opens up.
The car had one door on the top.
Yeah, one door on the top. So that's a Nova Sterling with a giant end grafted on the back of it, and the end has got the the flamethrower effect and everything. But it also has the hovercraft built in, and there was different versions of that car. None of those cars, by the way, because you're talking to the number one expert on the props, the wardrobe, and the vehicles of Condorman. Not that anybody cares. The cars have never been found. They showed up a few months after the film at the premiere, and then there's pictures of it doing a tour around England. Never showed up after that. Missing off the face of the planet. And then
the entire car. Wow.
The hydrofoil, which is from the end of the movie, that also showed up at the promotional thing. No laser gun on it. The word Condorman on the side, and it's never been seen since. And there's only one costume that's ever been seen. Disney, if they have anything in the archives, the only thing they have is the costume with the cow, no wings, no goggles, the famous yellow goggles with the beak gone, which I would absolutely give half my collection to own that. So it's so weird the power this movie has over me, because I have spent, as you know, since 1988, my entire life looking for stuff from the movies I love. Disney has only ever shown the Condorman suit off, and Planet Hollywood in Florida used to have it from the top of their ceiling. They had that big round ball in Florida. So right in the ceiling, they had that suit, no wings, no goggles. So that sat there for 20, 25 years before D23 put it out on the road. And then at the base of the Condorman suit, they had the newspaper, like, that says, looking for this guy. And then there was the Laser Lady comic that Disney has. There's one other thing in existence from Condorman. This is about 20 years ago. Someone went into Disney and they borrowed the mold, and we'll discuss this because it's bloody heavy. Do you know what this?
Wow, that's impressive.
So at the beginning of the movie, you see one of these in gold, and the animated character. I actually have 2 animation styles from Condorman. I forgot about that, but not near me right now. So this the Condorman character in animated form walks around it, and then it falls forward like that and crushes him. So to do that,
I always thought it was hysterical.
to do that, they had this logo that was made in resin. So this is a pull from the original mold. They found the original mold at Disney Studios. This is probably from like 2002 or something. And then they took 5 of them out of the mold, and it destroyed the mold when they took out the last cast. So I don't love this because it's not an actual real piece from the movie, but it is out of the mold. It is exactly the same as the real thing, which Disney has, I believe, except their one is obviously covered in gold, and then gold foil in the words. But that's it. That's 4 years of collecting. That's the only damn thing I found. And
well, if I come across any, I'll let you know.
Let me tell you how annoying that is, because you've got his cane that's a machine gun. You've got the wing. The Grail that I have is the wings that fold up. There's 2 versions of the suit. There's the suit in Paris, and then there's the suit that he wears when he flies off the Monty. And he said Monty Python, but
Carlo, yeah.
He can't to the top of the building, and then when he lands, he's still got the wires on. But I love that shot of when the wings all close up and he lays it on the ground. And many, many times I have dreamed that I was just off camera, ready to run in there and grab those wings and run off. It is. That's really like I'm running out of things to own. I've had a kind of a list of things that I wanted. I got Judge Dredd, a complete Stallone Judge Dredd. That was something that was a very proud moment. I found something about Beyond the Stars. I found John Boy's costume, Richard Thomas. I found his outfit from Battle Beyond the Stars. Not as good as seeing X-Men, but close. And then the only other thing that is missing is just Condorman. What something good from
Well, it's nice to have something to search for, right?
When you start getting a bit older, you start actually Captain Power too. That was high on my list.
Oh, yeah, that's sweet. I love Captain Power.
I guess it is the power of positivity and also persistence. Anybody out there ever want any recommendation about anything in life? The 2 P words, positivity and perseverance. 100%. Whether you're doing a podcast or writing a script or buying a prop or looking for a trading card, it's not always been about money. Well, never been about money because I never had any, but it's always been about going out there and laying your soul bare and talking about stuff. And I talked about Captain Power for like 15, 20 years before someone gave me a call and said, I've got stuff from Captain Power. Problem is, so talked about Condorman for just as long, and that's never happened. But the problem is because it's all owned by Disney, and if there is anything else now, it was either thrown away a long time ago or kept for their archives, and that's literally why I've never found a costume. I've never found a clapperboard. I've never found the car, the boat. I've never found. They destroyed most of the black Porsches. Yeah, it's my need to talk about it because I know in my heart I'll never own anything from it, and yet it really was the thing that I coveted the most.
You may have triggered a memory here. Of course, it might be also one of those what do they call it? Alternate reality memories, Mandela effect.
Yeah.
Because I could have sworn I don't think I had it. It was probably one of my friends when I was a kid that had a model of the car, and I remember there were ones that I think you would kind of shoot them out of a ramp or something like that that had a trigger, and I think if you hit something, they would burst into pieces. I don't know, because I think there was one like that, but I remember I think I had a chase with that, and it was being chased by the Fall Guy truck, which that would be an interesting chase, quite frankly. But
that thing, because I've never seen that. I've got a good idea of every single piece of merchandise, and to be brutally frank, there's almost none. You've got a 3-issue comic book series. You've got a novelization, which is awesome. If you want to read a good novelization that has it's slightly bigger than the movie, but not enough that you're like, oh wow, it's changed it. But the novelization is great. I've got that still. There's several posters, but only maybe 2 or 3, 4 different versions. I love the English one, which is, English posters are this way. They are not that
they look
way.
more like banners to us.
Um, if you actually go on IMDb, there's like 18 stills on there. So it just shows you how little. I mean, there are stills out there, but there's movie stills that were in the movie theaters that you could see. There was a Baskin Robbins ice cream flavor, like Condorman Crunch, which we didn't have in England. You guys got that.
Hopefully, it wasn't naturally flavored.
But the movie wasn't. It was on VHS. It came out on DVD. Very hard to get. But there was no soundtrack until about 15, 20 years ago, and Entrada released that, and it's one of my favorite soundtracks ever. Because literally every single piece of music, including the love theme, which is for Barbara Carrera, every single piece of music is bloody fantastic. So listen, you don't even need to buy it. It's on YouTube. You can listen to that, and once you listen to that in the car, you'll never get out. I guarantee you'll never get. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen a script for Condorman. I've never seen. There was a publicity thing out there, but with a few black and white photographs. I think the reason that it means so much to me is it's like Ahab. It's like the white whale.
That's the story of collecting.
There's not a lot of stuff out there, so it ends up becoming like this mysterious thing where you literally have the movie and not much else. Nobody has really ever talked to Michael Crawford or Barbara Carrera, Oliver. No one. There's no interviews on it. And in fact, I think I saw one with Michael Crawford when he was sitting down for Phantom of the Opera, and I just didn't get a feeling that he cared for it or he liked it. I mean, I have no idea. I've just never really seen anybody talk about it. And I think myself, I felt for most of my life, I was kind of like, I'm the only person in the world who likes this thing. And occasionally, I think I said to Seth, Condorman, and his eyes lit up, and then like, oh yeah, I remember that. So there is a base, a very, very small base of maybe like 1,000, 2,000 people who, when it showed up was it in Toy Story?
I think it was a Toy Story short. It wasn't one of the official movies. It was one of the spin-off shorts that they had a version of him.
So this little mini, the little mini car that they then have like the figure coming out the top of it, rolls in the Condor car with Condorman in it. And no one had talked about Condorman for like 30 years, and there it was, just a nugget, like when you eat a giant chocolate bar and you get a little bit of toffee in there, but there's a lot of almond. That was my little bit of toffee that after 30 years, someone at Disney bloody acknowledged Condorman.
Yeah, you got that little nugget after all that time. So someone an enthusiast like you was in there at Pixar and made it happen, and it was beautiful. Yes.
Well, Seth is the one who also brought up, he talked about there being a possible remake, and then, of course, that was on the internet, but nothing ever happened because it's like some of these amazing Disney things. That there's the Last Flight of Noah's Ark from,
which I love that movie, by the way. Yeah.
Escape from Witch Mountain. These things are all becoming forgotten, but they're all things that if Disney really want to mine their IP, I think I want them to mine the IP, but I'm just absolutely dreaded about what will come out the other side.
Yeah. And that's fair.
Because we get one chance in life, with these remakes, and invariably, apart from maybe a handful of movies, every single remake or reinterpretation I've ever seen has disappointed me.
You mentioned the book, the novelization, because I believe the movie was actually loosely based on a book called The Game of X by Robert Sheckley, who also wrote that novelization.
Which I've never. I can't believe I'm telling you that I've never read it. The source material. The only reason is I've got to believe that it really has going to have nothing to do with the finished movie.
Yeah. Well, I don't know this for sure because I haven't read the book either, but I believe one scene that was similar, like that was the closest, was when he first meets Natalia at the bar in Istanbul, not Constantinople, Istanbul, and of course the other spies try to catch him and he bungles his way through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something because the book is also a comedy about a guy trying to pass off as a spy. So I think that's probably the biggest thing it has in common. It just reminded me of the Clone Wars episode where it was Amidala was captured by some separatist sympathizer, and the only people that can save her are Jar Jar Binks and C-3PO. And and so Jar Jar puts on a Jedi cloak. And of course, it's Jar Jar, so he trips and falls everywhere, but he does so in a way that he dodges all the blaster bolts, and so everybody thinks, oh man, this amazing Jedi. And it's kind of similar to that because he doesn't actually intentionally foil anybody. He just bends down at just the right moment, and that guy goes, oh, that's like one of my favorite spots in the whole movie was that guy just flying over him like Wile E. Coyote.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was about to ask you guys, what are the sequences that have stopped with you? What are the things what are the bits you genuinely enjoyed?
There was one that stood out in my mind, and it stood out in my mind more based on an encounter I had a few weeks ago. With him, insisting on like testing out trying to build his own suit and test it out. This movie came out around the time that Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. And that seems very much like a Jim Shooter thing to do based on a conversation I had a few weeks ago at the Pittsburgh Comic Book Show with another former Marvel editor-in-chief, Tom DeFalco. Now, when I met Tom DeFalco, I brought a copy of Marvel 2-in-1 Annual Number 7, which was the Thing in a boxing story with, all the other super heavyweight superheroes against, being challenged by the champion of the universe. And if they don't fight him to his satisfaction, then he'll destroy planet Earth. And of course, Thing is Rocky. It's very on the nose, but it's my favorite Thing story because it shows his inner toughness that matches his outer toughness, and even when he's not as big as someone like Hulk or Thor, he's got the most fight in him. But I digress. At any rate, DeFalco told me a story about when that was made. Jim Shooter had the idea that his Marvel bullpen and all of his staff should box each other. And so he rented a boxing ring, and he wanted
the like 6'7"
artists and writers to punch one another, to step in the ring, and he wanted to box. And, Shooter was a big guy. He was about 6'7", but from what DeFalco said, he had never thrown a punch in his life. And yeah, DeFalco grew up in Queens and had several older brothers, and he's been punched in the face before. From what he said, he knew he could fight a little bit, and he was glad that nobody took him up on this offer because it would not have ended well for Mr. Shooter. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
And that's just that's kind of funny that that tied in. That sort of stunt with with the Jim Shooter administration at Marvel, because it does kind of fit in. And yeah, that's one that really hit me.
Yeah. I think the things I remember the most, like I said, the scene where Woody breathes the fire, uh, destroying all the Porsches, and really the opening montage where they have the animated version of him flying around very goofily and yelling and screaming because he's screaming like Goofy and stuff like that. And those are probably the things I remember the most. When you talk about it being released in '81, just to give you an idea, because I mean it bombed. I think Disney lost like 9 million.
Yep.
It was released in the summer of 1981. So these are the movies that Condorman had to deal with at the time. There was
I actually
Tarzan the Ape.
don't know these movies, so I'm interested to know.
Yeah. Well, we know most of them. There was, certainly, if not all of them. There was the Tarzan the Ape Man remake, which Bo Derek got the top billing in that one. Which if you were alive in '81, you probably understand why.
Is that Grace?
No, I think that was Greystoke, the Legend of Tarzan.
Right.
Which I can't remember which one was later, but
but the 1984, so that's 3 years later.
Yeah. But to some of these, to give you an idea, it had to compete with Raiders of the Lost Ark, Superman 2, Cannonball Run, and there was a re-release of Empire Strikes Back for like the 1 year anniversary or something like that. Yeah. So
nobody cared.
So to give you, and because if I recall correctly, the Empire Strikes Back, the week of its re-release, it went back to number 1.
Yeah. Well, it didn't have a chance then, did it?
Did not have a
Although it does hold the distinction, though, of being the first Disney superhero film, even though it was about a character who was fictional even in the movie. And I read somewhere also that it was the first, or I should say the last Disney movie to have all the credits in the beginning. Because that wasn't that weird of a practice at the time. They'd have all the credits at the beginning. There was no scrolling credits at the end. It just, it just ends, and then that was it.
Well, IMDb gives it a 5.7. I mean, obviously, the way that I regard this movie, it getting a 10.
Yeah.
I am always relieved to see that in amongst the. I don't even need to look at IMDb. I just remember when I see reviews of this film, it is nostalgic, it is remembered well. I just think that the 9 or 8 or 7 it may have gotten from people is being killed by all these youngsters coming in, watching it and going, what the hell is this? Because I think the problem is showing this movie to someone now, all of the things that drag it down are, the bad blue screens, the wires, the way it's very much a creature of its time because of the Cold War and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think people can understand this movie today.
I kind of hold in line with when I would try to show like my niece and nephew some of the stuff that I loved watching when I was their age, and of course it bores them to tears.
Yeah.
And because they can just jump on YouTube and watch something that captivates them, and they don't want to watch these old boring things that Uncle Seth watches.
Well, my favorite scenes, I love the scene at the beginning at the river scene. He's testing the suit, he's flying off the Eiffel Tower, nearly drowns. In fact, Michael Crawford did go in the river, and the weight of the suit nearly drowned him in the river. So he'd offered to film that again, but they said, no, you're going to have a stuntman this time because we're not going to risk our star dying on camera.
And talk about guts. I mean, the fact that happened and he was willing to do it again.
Yeah.
That says something.
It does. I mean, he. If you remember, some others do have them though. He did all those stunts himself on the roller skates, rolling down the high street and stuff. He did a lot of real dangerous stunts. So he was a very physical comedian. He didn't fear it, but that's the problem. A lot of these actors forget, that the whole production relies on you not breaking your neck or breaking your leg. So, very much a big fan of the Istanbul stuff. He goes talks to Natalia and tries to get the secret stuff out of him, and of course makes all the pratfalls, and his attaché case falls open, and he has to bend down to pick up the letters, and someone jumps over the top of him.
Yeah.
Absolutely love the quote that Seth said. When he drinks the obviously burning, like, put over the top of the cup, and says. The guy says, "A double? Nobody orders a double." And when he drinks, the fire comes out of his mouth, which, without fail, every single kid I've ever shown that sequence to laughs like, they laugh like a drain. They love that. They do love the slapstick, even though some of us go, "Oh, that's kind of ugh." But no, the kids love the slapstick. I love the Condor car. I love the idea, as I said, of the gypsy wagon transforming into a race car. The book, you should read it, has several different versions of the gadgets, but they always end up with the hydroplane where the hovercraft skirt comes out that goes over the pier. I love Oliver Reed getting really angry that he's lost Condorman. He is not an agent of the CIA. I just thought there are so many lines from this film that just live in my head, and I try to use them wherever possible. It is my lifetime's work is to keep this movie alive. I love the ski lift sequence, amazing sequence when Natalie gets all mad at him because she finds out he's not a secret agent after all, but he's a comic book writer. And I love the ending with the massive fight at the Monte Carlo Chateau, and then escaping with the wings. The Rolls Royce going into the Monte Carlo water, so that's another $500,000 in the drink, and of course ending with that incredible sequence with the hydrofoil, and then the six. I mean, it's basically a repeat on water of the Porsche sequence. So now we're going to destroy a whole bunch of speedboats. The book, instead of the helicopter lifting the Condor boat into the air, the book actually has the boat driving onto land with wheels, and it goes in the back of a large airplane, and the airplane takes off. In the movie, the helicopter rescues the boat, and that was always, I think, that they wrote the book from the original script, and I think they changed things when they were on location. But yeah, that's the music, that's the actors, that's the sequences, and I guess it's just the whole caboodle to me is not just as the movie sits, it's also the fact that there was a franchise there, and I dearly wish that franchise had gone on, but it didn't catch fire, and there was no merchandise, and basically I'm still sitting here at my age, just grateful that people have a nostalgic feeling for it, because, and I've introduced it to as many people as I can. I think I've introduced it so much that I lent some on my DVD, and now I've forgotten who I lent it to, so I'm mad about that. But yeah, my only complaint about the movie is that I ideally just want to own something from it, and I already know I'm never going to own anything from it. And actually, this is an interesting story. I went to Planet Hollywood. They used to have that one that was up in the ceiling, and I did ask them. I said, do you still have that Condorman? So I'm in a financial position now where I could actually make an offer on it. And they did some looking, and they were like, yeah, we got that button. For about 24 hours, the weight was off my shoulders. And then they got to me and they said, actually, Disney owns that piece, so we had to give it back to them. For a 24-hour period, I was very close. And then, of course, I was not close at all.
That one got away.
But yeah, if there's any more thoughts, I would say I don't. My main thing to say is please go and watch this film. Don't make me feel like just us three are the only ones who support it. And in the comments below, if you have any movies that you genuinely love and nobody else does, please write them down. I love the thought of watching things that other people really like, but the mainstream doesn't want. I could give you a massive list. But the next one that we do of these is going to be Battle Beyond the Stars. Which, if you said to Mark, you can have an X-wing fighter worth $4 million, or you can have the Hammerhead, which none of you guys know what it is, but it's basically a woman with her arms forward as a spaceship. And I'm not kidding you. That is the Hammerhead, designed by Jim Cameron. That is probably worth about 10. But if you said to me, Mark, you got one chance in your life, you can have the $4 million X-Wing, or you can have the $20,000 Hammerhead, I would say, I want the $10,000 Hammerhead. And that is how much I believe in the love that I have for these things. And I think that is something that I love about myself, is Tim Laws, my friend from the props store of London, said many years ago, and I love this quote that he says. It was, Mark is the thing I love about Mark is he only collects what he loves. And you know what? That's so true, and I never even knew it. I only buy things in my collection, and also it's a bad business decision that I sell in my store. I only buy the things that I love. So every time someone buys something from me, it is literally like cutting my toe off and letting them buy it. But
I can relate.
it's a terrible business decision, that everybody don't do that. But at the same time, if anybody ever said, I don't want something you have, tough, and I literally had to keep everything I had, I would be happy as heck. I'm the only businessman who doesn't have an inventory that he hates. And I know many people I've spoken to are like, oh, I bought this thing, it was $5,000, I can't get rid of it, I don't want it anymore, I never bought it, I just bought it to resell it. And I'm like, you just said it. You just said it. That's a mistake you made. Anyway, final thoughts about Condorman.
Well, the last thing I was going to add about it is there was actually a comic book sequel, I believe, the following year that Disney published. I haven't read it, but it had the same characters. For some reason, the character of Russ that Dana Elcar played, the character in the comics is depicted as black. I don't know if maybe that was an intentional thing or not.
You're making something in the back of my head, kind of like I think I've seen that, but yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
So I'll look that up now, because in all honesty, I haven't read that since the movie came out, if I've even seen it.
Yeah, but two things that are just things that I have noticed, and I know I'm not the only one to have noticed this, but obviously Disney has since bought Marvel. So this could theoretically mean that Disney could make Condorman part of the Marvel universe.
I was thinking the same thing.
But I can pray.
Yeah. Stephen Wacker, who I think is probably best known for creating Kamala Khan, he has said that he would very much like Condorman to actually be brought into the Marvel universe. Because I remember a couple years back, I was tempted to make one of those brief teaser Facebook reel things for the Geekville Radio page, building up something like, we've seen what's happened to the MCU. Only one man can save Marvel, and then the Condorman logo slowly gets illuminated. And you see it that Condorman is the last hope for the MCU. And of course, the three of us would be like, great.
Yep. Yeah, fingers crossed they work him into Avengers Doomsday, even just a little cameo, because everybody and their brother's going to be in that thing, right? So now's the time, if there ever was a time. Yeah, and like I said, this movie is ripe for a Vinegar Syndrome re-release of some sort. Hopefully, it's well done and to our standards.
Well, I do have and one more thing to think of here. Actually, I am not at all a man who loves AI. I believe the movie industry is in terrible situation because of it. I think that the minute you start letting people who have no business making films make films, then people are going to say, why do we even need someone to make films? But in my lifetime, if I get to have the good fortune of another 20 years, here is something that we will be able to do that I am actually excited about. Because Disney is going to do nothing with this franchise, I am going to put my, Mystic Mega hat on there and tell you there will not be a remake or any kind of continuation of this. But I am so amazed by what this AI can do that we will be able to have a sequel to Condorman. And I thoroughly think that the only person who could possibly do any justice to this thing wouldn't be me, but anybody else. But because nobody else is interested, isn't it incredible to think that we will be able to do that in the next 20 years? We'll be able to make a full-length movie, and it's not going to be great because obviously none of us are that imaginative but it almost doesn't matter, because at the end of the day there will be able to be something, and it will have the original characters in, and that you'll be able to have the original voices, and you'll be able to have basically an unlimited budget. Nothing about AI excites me other than something that should live on will be able to live on. I don't want them to Star Trek and Star Wars and none of the others. But to consider that a frustrated man could have a sequel to Battle Beyond the Stars and a sequel to Condorman, and really the only barrier to entry is making sure the script is okay, because I've seen what AI can do. I've seen the remaking of voices and textures and backgrounds and music. I'm actually quite excited about that. And of course, it'll only ever really be something for you. I almost would say you don't want this on Netflix. But in the same
there's probably a legal caveat where it would have to be just for you.
Exactly. But one of the things that I did as a kid, is I made fanzines up and little comic books, and we did things that seemed impossible 10 years after. In the 70s, who imagined that you'd ever have a video player? In the 80s, whoever imagined that you could Photoshop imagery together? Now, 30, 40 years later, I fully see a 90-minute Condorman sequel, and it will look like the original. And that's the only thing that excites me about AI. That because nobody else cares. Nobody else cares apart from me, and maybe you guys are curious to see what I would come up with. So maybe instead of looking for a Condorman prop, what I should do is now devote myself to making the first AI Disney sequel to Condorman, and maybe that is time better spent.
It would give you a more fruitful return, that's for sure.
I think so. But it's been a pleasure chatting to you gentlemen about a movie that means so much to me. I hope that at least one person watching this is maybe two will actually be like, I'm going to pay that $13.99 on eBay, and I'm going to buy that Australian version of Condorman. And feel free to buy one for me, because my one's been half-inched by someone, and obviously they liked it so much they didn't return it.
Well, I hope they're enjoying it.
So what do you think about Battle Beyond the Stars? Because I feel like this should be something we should return to now and then, that we can be looking at the movies that we love from our youth and waxing lyrical about them.
Yeah, it's fine by me. I'd throw Hawk the Slayer is my choice for one for the future.
I love
goodness, yes.
The Mind Stone sword just sold for £15,000.
Oh,
That was on my list of things that I would want, but I am not sinking £15,000 into a sword with a hand on the end.
Yeah. Well, I did not see that coming, but yeah, that's awesome. But yeah,
In
I'd
in
definitely
in,
be down for more talk like
in
that. Yeah.
swords that are cool, by the way, who remembers the tri-barrel sword that fired blades out? Do you remember that one? Is it
Mm,
a sorcerer? Is it?
Uh, sounds right. Yeah, I definitely remember that particular object.
Because he points a sword at the guy. It's got three sword blades in it. He presses a button.
Hmm.
And that sword blade shoots out.
Hmm.
That sword blade shoots out and kills someone. Um,
Hmm.
Sword and a sorcerer. Um, I know a movie from '76 too that I loved called Damnation Alley with George Papard. You ever heard of that?
heard of it.
I
I don't think
have.
I've
I've
seen
not
it.
seen it, but I've heard of it.
Well, we've got enough content, guys, for the next 20 years, so we'll be fine.
Yes,
Yeah.
we will be back to talk more cult movies with all of you out there on YouTube land. Until next time, watch Condorman.
Hmm.